The GEEK Files, 2026, July 24th. Work terms 3, 4, 5 consecutive at Creo, fall of 84 to the summer of 85. So, sweat projects. I think I've talked about sweat projects. There are these contractual obligations that don't stop a contract, but really have to be fulfilled to complete the contract, but no one's really pushing for them. Creo at that time used them to test out new hires. So I was assigned to Al, more again, and Al was given punch on drum. Creo at this time was making laser film recorders for the printing industry. So you take a big sheet of negative, big sheets like 3 by 4 or 2.5 by 4, something like that. Hold them on a spinning drum with vacuum, and then you have a laser head that goes across and exposes the film. And it's done digitally. So you do all your work digitally. You wrap this film up, you do it. And then you do your color separations, you do the film, and then use the film to expose the printing plate, and the printing plate then goes to the printer. And to do this, you need registration marks on the edge of the film, so that when you do the color separation, you can mount them and realign them to these fiducials. So for black and white, you don't need them, but for color, you do. So the idea was to mount these indexing punches to a machine, so that once the film is wrapped on the drum, these punches could come in and punch out the indexing holes, and then you could print it, and you knew where the indexing holes were with regards to 0, and you could have very good alignment. But it was like no one really was using that stuff at that time, and it was a sweat project. So Al and I came up with this way to do it, and we I think it was only for 1 or 2 models of film recorders. So we had this pneumatic system so the drum could spin. It had an encoder, so it could spin to a position. There was a notch in the drum that the film overhung, so that the punch could come in and punch it. We had 2 different punches. They were pneumatically driven. You could change out the punch heads depending on what kind of fiducial holes you wanted, blah, 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 blah. We hacked up a system, got it working. Had an interesting issue. Once the film is exposed, it becomes sensitive to light. So it's not very sensitive to, they try and make this film sensitive to red light, so you can put on yellow lights and handle the exposed film without doing it in the dark. Well, it turns out once the film is exposed, it's super sensitive to any other red light. So we were using infrared sensors, LED sensors, to tell when the punch was home, because we had, it was just easier. So these things had a red LED and a photosensor on the side. We had this blade that came back and cut that off, so you know when they're home. But that light in the enclosed printer or film recorder scattered enough light on that it was fogging the film. We were really surprised. So the software guys had to figure out, we had to come up this way. You punch the holes before you expose the film. Once the punches are back home, you can turn off the LEDs, these in the photodiodes, and just use air pressure to hold them back, because what you don't want is these things drifting into the drum, because the drum spins like 1,000 RPM or something. So once we did that really quick, and they were really impressed with Al and I. Number one, we were a team. We were working well together. He did a lot of the higher end stuff. I did a lot of the bulwark and the tracking, et cetera, et cetera. So they wanted to move Al on really quick. So the whole project, Punch on Drum, after the first month, I'd say month and a half, once we'd gone proof of concept, fell to me. So I had to come up with a casting to hold the rails that the punches rode on. I had to come up with a way of installing. We had very long rods, precision rods that these things rode on. They were thin and flexible on purpose, because we put on at the end of the punch carrier, there was a ball, and then there was a cone, a hardened steel cone mounted in the drum. So when the punch came in, it would auto-locate in the drum at the same place all the time. So we're really well indexed, or we're indexed to the micron level. It was stunning. We're indexed better than the film stock was capable of providing. So I come up with a way to install these really long rods, long thin rods, into the casting. I had to make changes to the drum casting, or at least to the machining, to provide for the notches in the side of the drum and the precision holes for the cone alignment dowels. I had to make changes to the casting for the frame, so that we had material to machine to mount the punch frame, and then had to move all of this stuff through their MRP system, and all the drawings. They were still using paper drawings. They had this wall of approved drawings in folders, and that's, yeah, paper drawings in separate folders, and those were the approved drawings, and the previous revisions were held in as paper drawings someplace else. I mean, this was the 90s, right? 94, 95. Yeah, so, and that whole process was going to take me into past 3 months, because the original design's easy. Getting this stuff into production as a working thing that you could just call up with when you have this SKU for this punch and drum system, you could just add it. Can't remember if we had the machining and the punch frame already done, so it was just a matter of adding. We probably did. So it was just a matter of adding the components, but they had to be carried in stock, and there's a whole MRP and withdrawal system. Yeah. So yeah, that was pretty cool. Jamie Lyle was the guy doing, and Brian Muir, and they were the guys doing the software and electronics part of it. I'm not sure. I think Brian had the electronics and Jamie had the software. But the four of us were held up as the way to do a project. And that was just because, the software and the electronics weren't that much, the mechanics were a lot. That was because Al and I came out of the telescope business, and it was, you had to know where everything was because money was really tight. You couldn't piss away money. You really had to justify where everything was going and why you made those decisions and record them. And I remember sitting in a meeting with Al. Al had, we still everything in the paper, right? I had big binders of notes, and the team lead, Steve Prasesky. Oh, there, we'll get into him. We're going through it, and he said something. Oh, well, I didn't say that. Now, open up the binders and said, "Yep, here's the email, and here's what you said. So yes, you did say that." Yeah, they got used to a whole different way of working with Al and I. Yeah, hey, good guy, Al. There's a whole bunch of guys: Al Moore, Jonathan Young, Marcus Fengler, a bunch of guys like that that came out of UBC that were just brilliant, just pleasure to work with and around. Anyway, yeah, making appropriate life decisions. You don't make any money, but you get good stories.